you don't remember the exact moment it began. Not because it was insignificant, but because it wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a car crash of emotion. It was a slow leak, like smoke curling under the locked door of your everyday life. A heaviness crept in, not all at once, but drip by drip. First it felt like fatigue, then disinterest. Then the colors drained out of the things that once brought you joy. You weren't sad all the time. You were just fading. You called it depression. Everyone does. But what if that word is too small for what's really happening? Carl Jung didn't see it as a breakdown. He saw it as a descent, not into madness, but into the deepest, most neglected chambers of the self. For 6 years, he recorded this journey in the most mysterious and sacred book he ever created, the Red Book. He didn't publish it during his lifetime. He feared people wouldn't understand, that they would mistake his visions for delusion, his inner dialogues for psychosis. But what he documented was far more profound than illness. It was initiation. It was metamorphosis. It was a reckoning with the unconscious. Most of us avoid the descent. We numb it, medicate it, label it. But Jung walked straight into it, and what he found could change how you see your own suffering. Let's start here. You are not broken. You are being called inward. You are not depressed in the clinical, sterile, modern sense. You are being summoned to face everything you've been suppressing for years. The silence, the discontent, the unfulfilled longings, the truth you kept buried beneath performance. Jung didn't descend because he wanted to. He did it because he had no choice. His old self, the successful doctor, the respected theorist, the public figure, was dying. The roles no longer fit. His soul was refusing to perform. Sound familiar? Maybe that's why you're tired. Not just physically, but soul tired. Your body is still functioning, but something inside is unraveling. And in our world, this unraveling is labeled as weakness. But what if it's something else? What if it's the beginning of your real life? Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. But when you're here, at the edge of exhaustion, avoidance becomes impossible. You're left with silence. You're left with yourself. And that's where the descent begins." In the Red Book, Jung encountered figures, archetypes, gods, monsters, shadows. He wrote down their words, not as hallucinations, but as parts of himself. The parts that had been rejected, abandoned, left to rot in the basement of his psyche. And when they rose, they didn't speak gently. They screamed. They demanded attention. They brought with them fear, desire, rage, confusion. But they also brought wisdom. They brought truth. That's the paradox of what we call depression. It feels like the end, but it's actually the beginning of inner contact. Think of it like this. You're in a house. All your life, you've lived upstairs, entertaining guests, smiling, staying productive. But one day, you feel a pull. You go down to the basement. It's dark, cold, quiet, and uncomfortable. This is where most people panic. They run back upstairs, desperate to feel normal again. But Jung didn't run. He stayed. And that's where the transformation happened. You're not here to escape the darkness. You're here to meet the part of you that lives inside it. Maybe that voice that whispers, "I'm lost," isn't a cry for help. It's an invitation to slow down, to listen, to stop playing roles, to descend. We live in a society that treats suffering like a disease. If you're tired, you need a break. If you're sad, you need a prescription. If you're not smiling, something is wrong with you. But Jung knew something deeper. The soul doesn't withdraw because it's broken. It withdraws because it's being ignored. So what happens when you finally listen? You stop reaching for distractions. You stop chasing applause. You stop trying to be understood. And instead, you start asking real questions. What part of me did I abandon to survive? Whose expectations have I been carrying like armor? What truth have I been avoiding because it's too painful to face? These questions don't come with instant answers. In fact, they come with more silence, more unraveling. But this silence is sacred. It's not a void, it's a womb. It's where your new self is being formed. Jung described his Red Book experience as a confrontation with the unconscious. But it wasn't a war. It was a dialogue, a reckoning, a surrender. He didn't try to control what came up. He listened, he drew, he wrote, he wandered. He let the unconscious speak its language through symbols, images, strange stories, chaotic dreams. And eventually, something began to shift. Not clarity, not happiness, but truth. The kind of truth that doesn't feel good, but feels real. So if you're in that place where everything feels like it's falling apart, don't run. Don't fix it. Don't numb it. This is not dysfunction. This is your soul initiating you into wholeness. You're not being punished. You're being remembered. Let's talk about what happens after the descent begins. Because no one warns you about this part. When you stop pretending, when your roles start to crumble, when the distractions no longer distract, you're not met with clarity. You're met with loss. Loss of identity, loss of connection, loss of desire. And it's terrifying. The person you were is dissolving, but the person you're becoming hasn't fully arrived yet. You're in the in-between, and it's lonely, silent, disorienting. It feels like dying. Not physically, but spiritually. This is what Carl Jung endured during his confrontation with the unconscious. The Red Book wasn't a triumph. It was a breakdown, a free fall, a surrender. He let go of being the psychologist. He stopped clinging to theories. He stopped pretending he understood anything at all. And in that surrender, something sacred started to emerge. This is what your depression might actually be. Not a flaw, but a fire. Let's be clear. Awakening doesn't feel like light. Not at first. It feels like grief. Because the first thing you lose is your old self. You start noticing the masks you wore, the ways you shrank yourself to be liked, the times you laughed just to smooth over discomfort, the goals you chased to prove your worth, the opinions you mirrored to avoid rejection. You didn't lie, but you performed. And now, you're too tired to keep the act going. So what do? You grieve. Yes, you grieve for the version of yourself that got you this far. The people pleaser, the overachiever, the caretaker, the strong one. That self helped you survive a world that punishes authenticity. So don't hate them. Don't shame them. Thank them. Then let them go. This grief is sacred because it makes room for something real to take its place. But it doesn't happen all at once. It comes in waves, emotional whiplash. One moment you're fine, the next you're crying on the floor, then rage, then apathy, then eerie peace. It feels like you're losing your mind. But Jung would say, you're finally hearing it. As the unconscious rises, it doesn't just bring light. It brings everything you buried. Childhood wounds, suppressed rage, unmet longing, forgotten dreams, shame you never named. They come up not to punish you, but to be seen. And here's the hardest part. No one else can do this work for you. You can have a therapist. You can read all the self-help books. But the descent, the real healing, that's between you and your soul. And your soul doesn't care about your resume. It doesn't care how many followers you have, how good you've been, how impressive your achievements look. The soul only wants one thing: wholeness. Not perfection. Wholeness. And to become whole, you have to stop splitting yourself in half. Stop being kind, but never honest. Strong, but never vulnerable. Smart, but never intuitive. Polite, but never real. Stop cutting off the parts of you that don't fit the mold. This is why awakening is painful, because it forces you to choose image or integrity, fitting in or waking up, being admired or being known. Jung made his choice. He gave up being understood. Even his fellow psychologists thought he had lost it. But he knew something deeper was calling him. And he answered, through symbols, through visions, through silence. That's your invitation too. To build a new relationship with your silence, not as punishment, but as a temple. Jung journaled every day. He painted. He walked in nature. He asked his inner figures questions and waited for answers. He allowed silence to speak its strange language. You can too. Turn off the noise, the constant stream of opinions, content, input. Let your inner world speak. Sit with the ache. Sit with the questions. Write down what comes up. You're not doing it wrong if it doesn't make sense. The unconscious doesn't speak in logic. It speaks in images, emotions, synchronicities, sensations. That weird dream, it's a message. That sudden wave of anger, a boundary, that emptiness, a clearing, but only if you're willing to listen. And while you're listening, something will begin to shift. You stop craving validation. This is one of the strangest symptoms of awakening. You post something you care about, and no one reacts. And for the first time, you don't care. You don't spiral. You don't question your worth. Because your worth isn't up for debate anymore. You stop bending to fit spaces that were never built for you. You stop shrinking to be safe. You stop performing to be praised. You finally remember you were real before you were rewarded. You were whole before you were approved of. And then comes the most unexpected stage. You become a mirror. Your truth reflects the lies others are still living in. Your boundaries highlight their lack of them. Your calm makes their chaos louder. Not because you're judging, but because you stopped pretending. And that's threatening. Some people will call you selfish, cold, distant, different. And you are. You're no longer who they want you to be. You're who you actually are. Carl Jung faced the same isolation. He was mocked, doubted, left alone. But he didn't go back. Because once you've touched the truth, comfort isn't enough. Applause isn't enough. Belonging isn't enough. Only wholeness will do. So here's the truth no one tells you. This part of the journey may last for months, even years. There's no clear timeline. You'll lose people. You'll question everything. You'll wonder if you're crazy. But through it all, keep going. Keep listening. Keep unraveling. Because on the other side of all that grief, all that silence, all that inner fire, is something unshakable. You. Not the you they trained, not the you they expected. The you that was buried under masks and fear and compromise. That's the one who's waking up. You've descended. You've wept. You've lost the old self. You've sat in silence and heard the voice within. But you're not done. You're in the most important phase of all, the reassembly, the reconstruction, the birth of the self that's not borrowed, not built on survival, not based on approval. This is where you take the fragments of your soul and start weaving them into something real. But here's what no one tells you. Rebirth is not a lightning strike. It's not an aha moment, it's a process, and it begins with one of the most radical acts of all, letting go of the need to be understood. You've been explaining yourself your whole life, your emotions, your dreams, your choices, to parents, friends, partners, even strangers, hoping they'll get it, hoping they'll approve. But now you understand. You weren't born to be understood. You were born to be whole. And wholeness isn't always legible to others. Some people will say you've changed, that you're not as nice anymore, that you've become distant, intense, difficult, cold. They're right. You've stopped abandoning yourself to keep the peace. You've stopped editing your truth for the comfort of others. You've stopped wearing masks to be liked. This is not selfishness. This is soul protection. As Carl Jung once said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But becoming that self means you must also accept something painful. You are not who you thought you were. Your identity was built on scaffolding, on trauma, on culture, on survival, on pleasing. You thought you were the strong one because you never cried. You thought you were healed because you kept busy. You thought you were kind because you never said no. But now, you see the truth. That wasn't strength, it was defense. That wasn't healing, it was avoidance. That wasn't kindness, it was self-abandonment. So what do you do with this realization? You grieve again. You mourn the masks, and even though they weren't the real you, they kept you safe. So don't throw them away with bitterness. Honor them, then release them, then walk forward. This is the second death, the death of the false healing. Now we build something different, something sacred, something yours, and it begins with silence. But this time, not the silence of despair, but the silence of intention. Jung treated silence like a ritual. He walked, he drew, he meditated, he listened, not for answers, but for integration. He knew that clarity isn't found by forcing, it's found by allowing. So here's your practice now. Build a new relationship with your silence. Make it sacred, a daily ritual. Sit with a journal. Ask your soul, what do you need to tell me today? Then write, not for performance, not for content, just to hear yourself. Because beneath the surface noise, you're still there, alive, waiting, wise. As the silence deepens, you begin to hear a new voice inside. It says things like, I don't live for approval anymore. I don't chase what drains me. I walk away without guilt. I protect my peace like it's sacred, because it is. That voice is not angry. It's clear. That's the real you. So now it's time to write a new internal Torah, a code of being, not based on rules, but on truth. Here's what it might sound like. I no longer perform for love. I show up as I am, or not at all. I no longer stay where I'm shrinking. I leave, even if I shake. I no longer apologize for my boundaries. They are not walls, they are doors. I no longer explain my worth. It is self-evident. I don't beg for love. I become it. This code is your compass. Because the world won't understand your awakening. It will try to pull you back. Back to fake smiles. Back to productivity addiction. Back to relationships where you're only half seen. But now you have something the world can't take from you. Self-respect. Let's talk about something difficult now. You are not your diagnosis. Yes, depression is real. Yes, therapy and medication can help. But the label is not the whole story. Carl Jung never said depression was a malfunction. He said it was a message, a calling, a descent, a sacred phase of transformation. He didn't treat his darkness like a defect. He followed it into the underworld, and there he met the parts of himself that had never been heard. You can do the same. Stop trying to get back to normal. You were never meant to be normal. You were meant to be whole. Now, everything changes. Not out of fear, but out of clarity. You say no without guilt. You leave the room when it drains you. You stop chasing applause. You stop begging to be seen. You stop posting for attention. You start creating from the soul. You no longer need the world to make you feel real. You've remembered you were real before you were ever rewarded. This is not about becoming someone new. It's about removing everything that was never truly you. That's what Jung did. And when he emerged from his own hell, he didn't give the world tidy theories. He gave the world truth. He didn't say, "Here's how to escape your darkness." He said, "Here's how I walked through mine." And that's what you're doing. So let me be clear. This will cost you. You'll lose people. You'll question your sanity. You'll want to go back. Don't. Once you've seen your soul, you can't unsee it. And once you've heard its voice, you can't unhear it. Let the old life die. Because what's waiting beneath the rubble is something raw, something sacred, something unshakably you. Finish what we started. You've descended into the dark. You've seen your shadows. You've burned away the masks. And now you're standing in the clearing. But here's the paradox. The work is never done. Because awakening is not a moment. It's a lifestyle. You don't just wake up and move on. You live awake every day. You walk with new eyes. You listen with a deeper heart. You carry yourself not as a role, not as a product, but as a presence. That's what Carl Jung meant when he said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And this is the final task, to live with the self you found in the silence, to stop abandoning them just to keep others comfortable, to protect your soul the way you once protected your image, to let your inner world set the tone for your outer life. So how do you live from that truth? Let's break it down. 1. You become the space, not the noise. The world will keep screaming. Social media will keep shouting who you should be. People will project. They'll say you're too much, too sensitive, too distant, too serious, too intense. But the awakened soul doesn't react. It doesn't chase validation or defend its path. It becomes space. You listen more. You speak less. But when you do speak, it's with precision. You don't try to convince anyone. You just exist clearly. Your presence becomes your message, and those who are ready will feel it. 2. You stop trying to save everyone. This is where many awakened souls get stuck. You start seeing the truth, and you want to help. You want to wake others up. You want to share the map, but not everyone is ready. Some people need more time in their own descent. Some are still addicted to their masks. Some will mistake your clarity for arrogance. Some will reject you violently. Don't take it personally. Your job is not to rescue, it's to remain. Remain in truth. Remain in peace. Remain in love, not the pleasing kind, but the liberating kind. Like Jung, you'll be misunderstood. You'll be called names. You'll be questioned. But your soul doesn't need approval. It needs integrity. 3. You let your daily life reflect your inner world. Awakening isn't about escaping reality. It's about grounding your soul in it. You change your rituals. Not just what you do, but how you do it. You wake up and ask, what part of me is speaking today? You make your meals with care, not to impress, but to nourish. You write, not for likes, but to hear your truth. You walk, not to burn calories, but to reconnect with life. You build friendships, not from trauma bonding, but from presence. You spend time alone, not as avoidance, but as devotion. every act becomes a prayer, a statement, a mirror of your new self. And slowly, your external life starts to match the internal transformation. 4. You become unfakeable. People will feel it. You no longer laugh when it's not funny. You no longer say, "I'm fine," when you're not. You don't perform politeness just to avoid discomfort. You don't shrink to protect someone else's ego. You don't flatter to keep the peace. You tell the truth, gently, clearly, but unshakably. This is power, not control, not dominance, but truthfulness as a way of being. Carl Jung didn't become great by collecting applause. He became great by refusing to lie to himself or to anyone else. And when you do the same, something magical happens. You attract people who don't want your mask. They want you. And that kind of connection, it heals everything the old world broke. 5. You walk with grief and gratitude. Let's not sugarcoat this. Awakening is a loss. You lose comfort. You lose relationships. You lose illusions. You lose the you that everyone liked. And even when the new self rises, there are days it still hurts. You miss who you used to be. You miss being naive. You miss not knowing what you know now. That's okay. Grief is part of the gift, because the deeper you go, the more you realize. The pain woke you up. The ache pointed the way. The numbness cracked your shell. So now, when you cry, it's not in confusion. It's in gratitude, because all of it led you here. And here is where truth lives. Here is where your soul breathes freely. Let's end with this. Carl Jung's journey through the Red Book wasn't just a personal diary. It was a map for us. A map that said, there is meaning in the madness. There is truth in the dark. There is power in the silence. But you must dare to descend, to die before you die, to lose your world before you can live truly in it. You have. Now don't go back. The old life will try to seduce you. The mask will whisper. The false self will offer safety. Let it all go. Because the soul you've uncovered, it's rare. It's sacred. It's you. And now you rise. Not as someone healed, as someone whole.